Why a pilot like Lewis Hamilton, who managed to get on the podium on the sprint, ended up fighting outside the points in the main race of the Miami GP. Was it his fault? Or Ferrari is sabotaging his own 2025 project without wanting? It all started on Saturday with a powerful but misleading image. Lewis Hamilton, under his Ferrari SF25, crossing the goal in third position in the sprint race of the Miami Grand Prix. It was a result that surprised many inside and outside the paddock, not so much for the quality of the pilot, but for the general situation that surrounded the Ferrari team. Throughout the weekend, free training had shown an unstable car, difficult to control and with a performance away from the tip group. However, that performance at the sprint lit a spark of illusion. Hamilton had left 7th and, through a brilliant strategic maneuver, managed to ascend to the podium. That maneuver was his, not from the box's wall. He took the initiative to change to dry tires at the exact moment in which the track allowed it. It was an instinctive decision based on pure experience. That play, in addition to effective, was symbolic. He showed that Hamilton, even in a new environment with an imperfect car and complex climatic conditions, still had that unique ability to read the races in real time and make decisions that make a difference. While others doubted, he risked, and that risk allowed him to overcome pilots with a better rhythm for the rest of the weekend. It was the kind of movement that only the greats managed to execute without margin of error, and at that moment it seemed that Hamilton was about to write an immediate redemption with Ferrari. The cameras showed him smiling, and his body language transmitted a security that had not been seen since his best days in Mercedes. But what many did not see was that, behind that podium, the problems of SF25 were still present, only temporarily disguised. The conditions of the track played a key role in that outstanding performance. The rain prior to the race had altered the general grip, and that helped level the terrain. In scenarios like this, the pilot counts more than the car. The Ferrari SF25, which had been showing serious balance problems, especially in traction and rear stability, benefited from a situation where no one could exploit its technical potential 100%. Hamilton used his knowledge and ability to adapt to overcome a treacherous track, and in that context the car responded within the acceptable. But that answer was not sustainable. It was not the result of a real improvement in the performance of the car, but of the chaos of the moment. It was an exception, not a rule. Within the team, the reaction was measured. Although there was satisfaction for the result, engineers knew that the main race would not offer the same conditions. The real performance of the SF25 was going to be revealed when the conditions stabilized, when they were all in equal circumstances and there would be no room for improvisations. Hamilton also sensed him. Although he celebrated the podium with enthusiasm, he was restrained in his subsequent statements. I knew that action did not mean that the problems were solved. In any case, it was a demonstration that, despite everything, it could make the Ferrari shine in a limited context. These types of moments, where the pilot manages to excel beyond the machine, are those that build legends in Formula One, but are also the ones that hurt the most when reality is imposed strongly. The sprint was a tactical, emotional victory even, but it was not a clear indication of progress. It was a pause in the middle of a storm. And the storm, as we will see later, was far from finishing. The Sunday classification was the breakdown. After the podium on the sprint, there was some expectation that Ferrari could at least stay in a competitive area, but that illusion disintegrated quickly. Lewis Hamilton was eliminated in Q2, classifying just in 12th position on a track where the exit position is everything. That result was devastating. Not only because of the distance of the leaders, but because of the way it happened. There were no piloting errors, neither inopportune yellow flags, nor abnormal track conditions. It was a pure performance problem. The car simply was not up to par. And when Hamilton got off the car, his statements showed the level of frustration. "I can't make the car work, I have no confidence, I have no traction." Those words, coming from a pilot who has managed to dominate complex cars in the past, are an alarm signal for any team. What is happening with the SF25 is not a punctual failure. It is an accumulation of concept, execution, and development errors. Technically, the car has erratic behavior due to poor aerodynamic balance. The rear of the car lacks the necessary load to guarantee stable acceleration traction, which forces the team to compromise other areas of the setup. To compensate for this deficiency, Ferrari has been raising driving height, trying to gain some general stability, but this emergency solution is generating other adverse effects. By raising the chassis, efficiency in the car floor is lost, which is the main source of aerodynamic load in current cars. The result is a car that bounces in certain curves, slips into others, and never delivers a consistent response to the pilot. In the race, these deficiencies are magnified. Hamilton started from the middle zone of the platoon and quickly trapped in traffic. Under normal conditions, a pilot with his experience could advance positions, manage tires, and execute an undercut strategy to gain ground. But none of that was possible. The lack of pure rhythm prevented any attempt to come back. In addition, Ferrari failed in his strategic reading of the Grand Prix. While other teams adjusted their stops depending on the real behavior of the tires, Ferrari opted for a conservative strategy, keeping their pilots more time on the track, which resulted in an overheating of the compounds and loss of sustained rhythm. The SF25 is not only unstable, also degrades the gums disproportionately. And on a track like Miami that condemns you to the bottom of the grill. Hamilton's frustration was evident in each lap. Despite trying to adapt, the car did not give him margin. Any attempt to force the rhythm derived in errors due to survival or subwiring, depending on the curve. The most serious thing is that Charles Leclerc, his teammate, faced similar problems. This makes it clear that we are not facing a matter of pilot adaptation, but before a structural failure of the car. Both agreed that the SF25 behaves differently every time it goes on track. The track conditions, temperature, and tires radically alter their performance, which makes it impossible to establish a reliable base configuration. This lack of predictability is devastating for classification performance, where every tenth account and any imbalance is magnified. What we saw in Miami was not an anomaly. It was the confirmation that Ferrari has developed a car with an extremely narrow operating window. Outside that window, the SF25 becomes an unpredictable machine, unable to compete with McLaren, Mercedes, or Red Bull on equal terms. And the worst part is that, for more adjustments that are made, there is no clear solution in the short term. It is a situation that recalls the worst years of Ferrari, where erroneous technical decisions accumulated career after career without a change of course. Hamilton is now in the middle of that technical hurricane, trying to apply his experience to find solutions. But even for him, the maneuver margin is minimal when the work tool does not respond. What happened in Miami cannot be analyzed in isolation. It is, in reality, the confirmation of a pattern that was already hinted at the previous great awards. From Australia passing through China and Japan, the SF25 has shown clear signs of being an unbalanced, unstable, and very difficult car. The lack of consistency in his behavior has frustrated Hamilton's adaptation attempts, who arrived in Ferrari with the expectation of being the leader who returned the team to the top. But that optimistic narrative is falling apart before a technical reality that does not give truce. The good feelings of the sprint in Miami vanished too fast and exposed a structure still under construction. Hamilton is not simply competing against Verstappen, Norris, or Russell. He is fighting a car that does not respond, a team that has not yet found the course, and excessive expectations that are generated by its own name. Ferrari brought it as a change figure, an absolute reference, but also as an instant solution. And that, in modern Formula One, is a dangerous fantasy. The connection between pilot and car is critical, and when that connection does not exist, neither experience nor talent is enough. Hamilton has recognized him in his most recent statements. The adaptation process is being slower than expected, and there are things that he simply cannot force. The problem for Hamilton is that its maneuver margin is limited. In Mercedes, with all its defects, I knew the environment, systems, engineers. In Ferrari, it is starting from scratch in a completely different culture and at a time where the team is caught between the past and the future. He has the pressure to render, to demonstrate that he is still competitive, but also the responsibility of helping to build a project that is clearly far from being finished. It is a capital challenge even for someone in their caliber. The real challenge ahead is not just to improve results. It is leading a transformation from within, contributing its technical knowledge and champion mentality to make Ferrari work as a block. That implies patience, constant work, and above all, enormous mental resistance. Because if something was clear in Miami, it will not be a quick redemption story. Hamilton is at the beginning of a very complex path. And the great unknown is whether he and Ferrari will have the time and resources necessary to travel until the end. What happened with Lewis Hamilton in the Miami Grand Prix was not simply a bad result. It was an overwhelming sign that the Ferrari 2025 project faces deeper problems than many want to admit. The lack of consistency of the SF25, the disconnection between the car and the pilot, and the inability of the team to offer rapid solutions have exposed a vulnerability that cannot be hidden with an occasional podium or with a good round in the sprint classification. If Ferrari wants to aspire to the title, or at least stay competitive, he cannot continue trusting that the individual talent of his pilots will be sufficient to compensate for the structural deficiencies of the car. Hamilton arrived in Ferrari with the weight of his own legacy, not only as a champion but as a symbol of transformation. His signing was received as the effective effect that the Scuderia needed to return to the top. But Formula One does not forgive illusions without technical foundations. The challenge ahead is monumental. It is not enough to be fast, now it has to be the emotional and strategic engineer of a team that still does not know how to win in a sustained way. And that, in an environment as demanding as Maranello, can become as exhausting as running in rain with dry tires. The next big prizes will define much more than the championship. They will define whether this relationship between Hamilton and Ferrari has the potential to bloom or if it is condemned to be a story of good intentions frustrated by a failed execution. It is still early to sentence, but the time in Formula One runs faster than in any other sport. And meanwhile, the rivals do not expect. McLaren is still solid, Red Bull is reorganized, Mercedes gains ground. If Ferrari wants to fight, he has to react now. Do you think Hamilton made the right decision when Ferrari went? Or is this project already showing signs that it was a mistake? Leave it in the comments.